I'm dead. I was literally just like thinking, I'm dead.
So
I'm like,
you
well, I'll be,
you lose the ability to move. You can hold your
yeah,
breath. You're face down. Were you in
yeah.
pain at all? Hey Mike, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. So how long did we ever figure out how long we've known each other?
Um, let's see, 2017.
That sounds right.
2017 is when I got, let's see, I was laid off at Keep in 2017, and and then somehow got connected with Russ and company,
Yeah.
and so
So
yeah,
and it's now 2024, so we can say 7 years safely.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not
It's
like
been that,
we've hung out every week of those 7 years, but
right?
we've stayed in pretty good contact, right? It hasn't like
Yeah.
we didn't go 3 or 4 years between contact.
No, no. It was well, maybe. I don't know, because I remember connecting with you one time when you were at um, the
The center,
the the center, the
yeah,
center. Yeah,
they
yeah.
were looking.
So
They hired your wife for a while, or they were trying to hire your wife. I'm not sure if
for
they
a little
actually ever
bit,
did.
yeah, for a little bit, yeah.
That's cool.
So
So, let if you don't mind, could you just share a little bit of your background? You know, where you grew up and what where you are now, and kids, wife, and all that.
yeah, and kind of my life story.
Sure,
That we
that'd be
want.
great.
Okay,
And I'm going to interrupt because that's what I do. But
sure, sure. Yeah. So I grew up in California, Vacaville area, which is southwest of Sacramento. So we live in California, out in the boonies, out in the country, and so my dad was a pilot, and that's why we're in California. He worked for U.S. Airways, PSA, and then U.S. Airways. Anyways, so I lived in California till I was about uh, I just turned 16. Just turned 16. So eighth grade, seventh grade. I can't remember. No, ninth
okay,
grade.
that would
Ninth
make more
grade.
sense to my head. But I wasn't going to say, hey,
Ninth
how many
grade.
grades did you flunk to be a 16-year-old there
Ninth
in
grade.
seventh grade?
I was just trying to think because I did junior high in Vacaville, and then my first year in high school in California, I moved like 3 months in my freshman year, and we moved out to North Carolina because my dad's job took us out there. And so we were in Charlotte, just north of Charlotte area, and I call North Carolina my home. I never really say
Okay,
I grew up, like grew up in California. I always say I grew up in North Carolina because that's just North Carolina is awesome.
yeah,
Um, so, anyways, yeah. So, North Carolina, uh, high school, and then um, graduated and went on my mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Went to Las Vegas
nice.
area. It was at first it was disappointing. I was like, I read it. I'm like, Las Vegas, because I had been to Las Vegas 100 times. My
Sure,
grandparents lived there, and I was wanting to go, Spanish speaking or someplace over in Europe because my dad served his mission in Mexico. So, anyways, but it was awesome. It was awesome. Vegas was great. I served in Vegas and Reno and way up north in Winnemucca and
oh, okay.
Hawthorne and all over the place. So, anyways,
And do you know
yeah.
what year that was?
Uh, 98 to 2000.
Okay, because I had a
98.
a friend of mine. His name's Cameron as well. He served in
Okay.
Las Vegas in 1995 to 96. So
Oh, okay.
would have been before your time. And then
Yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
boss who served in Las Vegas too. So
Yeah.
I have no idea when he was there, but
Right. That was probably half the like the West Coast. If he's an older gentleman, it would have been
no,
back in the 80s or
no.
70s or
So
something.
he was actually probably younger than I was.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he probably had a better chance of overlapping with you than my buddy Cameron, my friend. We have birthdays that are like a day apart. His
Okay.
mom's name is Linda. My mom's name is Linda. He was called
Crazy.
Little Cam, even though he was 6'4".
Little Cam. How tall are you?
I'm 6'8". Well, I used to be.
Really?
Now I'm probably
6'8"?
6'7". Yeah.
Holy cow. I'm 6'4" when I'm standing.
Really?
Yeah, I've got a standing frame that I get in that helps me stand up.
I didn't
Um,
know you were 6'4".
yeah, I'm 6'4".
That's that's cool. And a
Yeah.
standing frame. So how does that work?
So, oh, I'd show you, but I got my clothes drying on it right
Nice.
now. So I get in, and it locks my feet in, and it locks
Okay.
my knees, and then I just use kind of hydraulics, and it just pushes my butt up, and it just stands me up.
And
So
is
it's
that
just
for
like
health reasons or what's the benefit?
just bone density because I'm always sitting.
Oh, okay.
Always sitting, being in a wheelchair, and you stand up and you're getting weight bearing on your bones, and I
Right.
don't. I don't have any weight bearing, and so I'm supposed to do it more. I don't do it very often. I need to do it every day. But I've got the bone structure of an 8-year-old woman, you know, like
And
on
that's just
set.
from not bearing weight?
Yeah, it's just from not walking around.
Huh. I
Yeah,
I don't think I realized that. I knew that astronauts had trouble with their bones because they're weightless, but it didn't occur to
yeah,
me
same
that
thing.
sitting would cause similar things.
Right. I mean, like my spine, everything that's got gravity pushing on it is okay, but
Hmm.
my hips, my legs I've got like early osteoporosis going. So I take a bunch of vitamin D and all that stuff. But
Gotcha. So how long have you been in
yeah.
a wheelchair?
Yeah, so right after my mission, I got accepted into BYU Hawaii,
Woohoo.
and I was just gonna go out there with my buddy and do a semester, just play around. So, anyways, I got out there, and this was 2000. No, 2001. When was 9/11? 2000?
Yeah. It was, let's see, I was working at Micron, so it had to
It
be
was.
2001. That's awful that I don't know.
I can't ever remember that. 2000. It's 2001. So 90. Yeah, because 98 to
Yeah.
2000. Okay. So, anyways, yeah. So I went out there and um, I got hurt. No, it'd be 2000. Sorry, because I'm just trying to think of my timeline. I was I went out to BYU Hawaii, and I was there for 3 weeks, and I got hurt in a diving accident. So the North Shore of Waimea Bay, I dove in just from this walk run. I was running down the beach, and I dove in and just hit a sandbar, broke my neck. I was paralyzed from the neck down.
Man.
I couldn't. I could breathe. I was holding my breath, facing down in the water,
Oh,
and
man.
basically was like, "This is it. I'm dead." I was literally just like thinking, "I'm dead."
So
And I'm like,
you
"Well, I'll be
you
yeah,
lose the ability to move. You can hold your
yeah,
breath. You're face down. Were you in
yeah."
pain at all?
Nope, didn't hurt at all. It just it was like a it's like you walk up to the wall and kind of bump your head a little bit. It was
Uh-huh.
just it was just hit, and then I felt like I had hit somebody's leg, you know.
Okay.
It
So from your
wasn't
perspective, it wasn't like a traumatic hard hit,
no, it
but
wasn't shocking or anything. I just yeah, it kind of hit, and then all of a sudden I was like realized, oh my gosh, I can't move, and I was holding my breath. I could have my eyes open, and I could see the bottom of the ocean and the sand turning up and stuff. And I thought I was gonna die. I was like, well, I'm gonna be up there with my grandpa because he had just died a couple months
huh.
earlier. Anyways, so that thought, as soon as I had that thought, I was instantaneously, I was facing the other direction and I was flipped over.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
So
I
you're
was like,
you're staring at the sandbar thinking, "Okay, this is it. I'm going to go see my grandpa sooner than I thought."
hmm
And then you're face up. So did you have a clear airway then because you're face up, or was the
yeah,
water
yeah.
still coming over you?
I was in. My head was kind of washing on the sand, so
Oh, okay.
I was totally out of the water, facing the other way. I spit my gum out, and I yelled help. And some
That's an interesting
off-duty,
detail. You spit your
yeah.
gum out.
I just remember because when you go in the ocean, you chew gum because of the salt water. At least I did
Okay.
because it's just nasty, and so
Yeah.
you know put it have some like I don't know spearmint gum or something. So
Right.
I was chewing gum, and I remember laying there, spit my gum out, and I was like, help, help, and somebody came up and some off duty medic. He was a Marine.
Oh.
Um, yeah, he was a Marine medic, and he stabilized me on a boogie board and pulled me out.
So he knew
And
what he
then
was doing. He didn't cause more
yeah,
damage from.
right, right,
That's cool.
yeah,
And
and
you were
then
21 at the time or 22?
no, I was 20.
You were
I was
20.
20. I just got off my mission.
Oh, okay.
So wait a second. I was 21. That was when you went on your mission when you were 19.
Right. That's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're 20. Okay. Well,
No, no, no.
I couldn't remember when they made the switch
No,
cuz, you know.
I was 19. So I was 21. Yeah.
Okay.
21. And I was like, uh, it's just shocking. You're like, there's no way this can't be happening. Because I was
Yeah.
super athletic. Like everything I did was just uh, centered around physical activity. You know,
Mhm.
like I did not sit ever. I was just always busy. So it was crazy. Yeah,
Do you,
and you're go ahead.
do you think the fact that you were very active did that help at all, or did it not matter because when you break your neck, it's like
It
your
doesn't
your
matter.
life is different. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you become a sack of potatoes. You're
Oh.
just totally useless.
So
You know.
this guy pulls you out. He stabilizes you on a boogie board. He did they call 911 or you get transported?
Well,
How
yeah.
did
So
you
they
get?
call 911, but they have lifeguards on duty. They know what
Okay.
they're doing. They pulled me out, kind of pulled me up out of the water more. And you know the scenes like in movies where everyone's looking up and everyone's kind of looking down, surrounding you.
Yeah.
That's exactly that's exactly the scene. I look up and there's just people surrounding me, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's Mike! It's Mike!"
Oh.
I had a bunch of friends there. That we were at the beach like a Circle the Island tour for freshmen at BYU Hawaii. So
Oh
there were a
yeah.
ton of
Okay.
people there and a ton of people at the beach, tons of people. So I was just crazy. And then they put me in an ambulance, and then there happened to be a Black Hawk helicopter, a medic helicopter that was doing practice runs up and down the coast, and it just happened to be crossing by, and they're like, "Yeah, let's go." So they came and picked me up.
In a
So
Black
they
Hawk?
yeah, they threw me in the helicopter, medical helicopter, like a military helicopter,
Yeah.
and which was totally awesome because they flew me basically. Waimea Bay is completely opposite of where Honolulu is, the
Okay.
island, north to south, and they just took me straight up over the island, but I was facing up the whole time, like I couldn't. All I could see
Right.
was the ceiling of the Black Hawk helicopter.
Man.
And I get on there and he's like, "Hey, if you stop breathing, raise your hand." And I couldn't move my arms. And I'm like, uh, okay,
How about I
you
stick
know,
out my tongue?
yeah. So it was
Oh
a
man.
30-minute flight, which it's what's cool about that is that if I had taken the ambulance, it would have taken 2.5 hours
Oh, okay.
because there's a 2-lane highway that circles the island and it takes forever. And Hawaiians drive super slow. And it's just like, just kind of laid back, chill. So it would have taken 2 hours, at least 2 hours to get me there. Instead, it took me 30 minutes. Now it was like 15 minutes. It was a quick flight.
Wow.
So, yeah,
So you go to the hospital.
yeah.
At what point, I mean, did you know for sure? I mean, you obviously couldn't move. You're not
Yeah.
dumb. So did you like go, okay, I've broken my neck here? Or were you hopeful that maybe it was something else? Or when did it
No,
set in that it was done?
when I was in the ambulance, because it was not coming back, and I
Gotcha.
was, and they're like, these two medics were saying something. They're like, "Oh, look, what's going on with him?" And there was something probably going on with my bodily fluids. I was
Uh,
like just losing all control, and so they were like, we got to get this guy. So yeah, well, I guess I was hopeful. I was still kind of like, oh, this is gonna be okay going into surgery. And then when I got out
and
and I
what did they
talked to the
do for
doc,
surgery? What were they hoping to do, or what did
so it
they?
was C6, C7. So
Okay.
it was a burst fracture. My sixth cervical in my neck just broke into 4 spots
Yeah.
and bruised my spinal cord. So it wasn't severed at all. There's no cutting or anything. It was just bruised.
Okay.
Um, and they just fused my neck. I've got a plate in my neck, little plate, looks like a dog bone, right on the front here. They took bone from my hip and fused it into my neck. Used that. I woke up. I had like things drained coming out of my neck, and I had stuff all over me, and it was pretty wild. Um, I
And your
remember.
parents are
So
back in North Carolina at this point, or
yeah, yeah, they're in. Where were they? They were like on a cruise ship. They were somewhere. Um, yeah, I can't remember. They were. I don't know. They were out on a trip or something. So yeah, they were back in North Carolina. My whole family's there, and um, I had some family in Arizona, and my uncle was a pilot. Uncle Bruce. He was flying in California, and he heard, and he's like, "I got to go," and he jumped on a plane and flew to Hawaii. So he was
oh,
there the next day. He was there for like a couple days before anyone showed up.
that's cool.
So yeah, it was kind of nice, but it was pretty wild. So I was in the hospital for 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
stabilized, and then they flew me in a little Learjet. They flew me on my back, um, 12 hours to Charlotte. It was crazy. And it was just this little tiny plane, but
So
because I couldn't
direct
fly
from
sitting up.
Hawaii, they skip the coast and they just go right to your end destination.
We stopped in St. Louis, I believe.
Okay.
Or no, maybe it was like, because it was a smaller plane, so California and then maybe St. Louis and then Charlotte. Um,
Still, that's pretty
so
cool.
yeah, yeah. When I flew out there to first go right after mission, I remember I went Charlotte, St. Louis, all the way to Honolulu. So, anyways, yeah, and then I've spent 3 months in the hospital in Charlotte recovering.
So my son actually had a burst fracture of
Yeah,
one of his vertebrae, and he had a hematoma on his spine where they that. So I have three kids who've broken vertebrae,
right,
and which is weird.
right.
Um, but his was the one that caused the most anxiety for everybody because of the bleed into the spinal column, and
Yeah,
luckily it
that's
stopped and then it was reabsorbed. So that was a
wow.
blessing.
Yeah, yeah, that's lucky. Yeah, so when I woke up, my we had it was kind of cool because the helicopter was there, and then we had this surgeon that was the best surgeon like on the West Coast. He was just an amazing spinal cord surgeon, really good guy, and he just happened to be there for some conference. They're like, "Hey, we need you," and so he came in and did my surgery.
Seriously, so didn't live in Hawaii. He just happened to be
No,
there.
he was in Maui, I think, and he was just down there for a conference or something.
Huh.
He just happened to
They're
be
like, oh,
there,
too bad we couldn't get a really good doctor. Wait,
right?
this
I
guy's
know. Yeah,
here.
he was there. So when I got out, he told me like, I asked him, "Hey, am I gonna be okay? Or am I gonna walk again?" And he was like, I can't tell you. Like, I don't know. That no one knew,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of people that were saying like, I've never seen anyone that's so positive. He's gonna be just fine. Like he'll just be, just fine. So there was a lot of like encouraging people saying I was gonna be fine, and I always maintained for years that I was gonna walk again on this earth, like in my lifetime. And I've kind of come to the conclusion after like probably about six or so years ago that I wasn't going to recover on this earth, like while I'm
Was
alive here.
Can you talk a little bit about how that transitioned, and was it gradual, or did you just go, you know what, forget this, I'm gonna not walk again, or I'm gonna, I mean, how do
Yeah,
you?
it happened pretty quick. Um, yeah, I mean, so when I was, we can talk about like spiritual stuff. You're okay with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, all right. So in the hospital right after my surgery, I woke up. I woke up. I'm on my back. It's like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm on my back, and they didn't take care of me very well because I was laying on a hard surface. My head was like on a sheet that was folded, and my head was just throbbing. I couldn't lift my head up.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there, I've got a mask on, I've got wires beeping, everything, and I'm trying to yell help. I'm yelling help. I can see on a monitor that all these nurses are just like hanging out playing cards like in the lobby,
Oh
and they're
man,
just not paying attention because he just got a surgery. Anyways, so I'm yelling help, help, and I'm trying to pull stuff out of I'm trying to like pull
you're
things
like,
out to like
if I
cause
get
the
this disconnected, it'll beep and someone will
beep beep.
come.
Yeah. So I'm trying. I could barely move my arms. Um, so anyways, finally they come in. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're awake!" And they turn the lights on, and they proceed. I've got like four women, and they proceed to just strip me and just are washing me. They're just having a good old time, and I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
and just they just so it was they're really nice ladies. But anyways, so I'm laying there, and I'm like, okay, Heavenly Father, I have to know. Like I just tell me, give it to me straight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, am I going to be okay? Will I be okay? And I heard clear as day President Monson's voice, and it was just like, you're gonna be fine.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you'll be fine. So I was like, okay. And you know, I don't know, I interpreted that I was gonna walk again.
Right.
So for years and years, I maintained that and I held on to that story. And I always felt like I always told everyone I met, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to walk again, you know? And I remember in the hospital, I was thinking, oh, it could be a 6 month recovery. And I thought, no way. I can't make it. I can't do 6 months of this. And I've been
Right.
going, it's been 23 years. 23 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it got, like I can't remember when, but I just realized I was like, you know what? This is the only way I would walk. I wouldn't just walk on my own. The only way I would walk is through some sort of um, medical breakthrough, miracle or
Right. Some
something.
kind of innovation. Yeah.
Like somebody makes some kind of brain chip, that embeds into your brain.
Right.
If
Like
only
the Elon
somebody did
Musk
that.
Neuralink. Is that what it's
Neural
called?
chip, yeah, Neuralink,
Neurochip.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about applying and being a test, you know,
That's
which,
brave. I don't know if I would want to be the first
right.
batch. I think I'd want to wait.
Well, I think if I was totally paralyzed from the neck down, I would totally do it,
Oh, right.
because I think that's what it is. It's really for people that are totally paralyzed from the neck down, because they're trying to. I saw a video today, and people can control a mouse and stuff just with their brain.
Really?
Yeah, literally, they could just sit there and you like move your.
Already? Wait,
Yeah,
this is
it happened.
Neuralink?
Yeah, Neuralink. There was just a video today
It seems like
on it.
just yesterday they had the monkey sipping on the straw playing
Right.
pong.
No, they've been doing human trials for it. So
Wow.
they've got the device and everything, and so I've seen people do it. Somebody was just doing it. So
Oh man.
it's getting close. There's lots of things out there. So who knows?
Yeah.
Um, but luckily, I've got the gospel, and I know that the power of the atonement and resurrection will be a glorious day.
Yeah, well, that's kind of cool. When with Connect and Conquer, the company that we started, um we believe in three base principles, and that's that to overcome adversity you need a connection with deity, connection with others, and
Mm,
connection with yourself. And that connection with deity is such a sensitive subject for a lot of people because they don't know how to talk about it, because it's almost intimate, with their relationship with their higher power. And yet to hear you talk about this is just, I was like, am I going to be okay? And you described that voice. Uh, when you realized later on, 20 whatever years later, or 15 or 17, and
mm-hmm.
you're going, okay, so I might not be walking without the resurrection. So did it change any behavior? Did you change focus, or was it just like, oh, you know what? I'm just not going to apply mental energy to this.
Yeah, I'm just not going to apply mental energy to this. It didn't change my positive, like, that someday it'll happen. It wasn't that devastating. Um, hey, one question. I hid myself on the video. Is it going to mess up the video?
Nope, not at all.
Oh, it's going to see both of us. Okay.
Yeah.
I was getting distracted with my video, so I just showed you
Oh,
on it. Oh,
well,
okay.
that's unfortunate for you, but
All right.
that's all good.
Um, no, I remember one day where I was in physical therapy, and some woman, she'd been doing it for 30 years, and I said, "Have you ever seen anybody recover?" And she's like, "No." And
Oh,
she wasn't even like soft or anything. She just said, "No, it's never happened, Mike." And that was devastating.
oh,
That
I
took a
bet.
couple days to kind of like come to grips with it. Um, that was tough, and I was like, whatever, she
As
can't
you recovered
decide.
those 3 months in the hospital, what were you? What was the focus? Because for my kids, when they broke their backs, all of the focus was on, okay, this is now how you do stuff. And these are the absolutes. You don't do any of this and you don't do any of that. And you wear a big sign that says, don't knock me sideways because I will die, and
Hmm.
all of these things. But like my son started doing occupational therapy to learn how to put his shoes on because that was like near impossible for him.
Yeah.
So, what did you do during the recovery after Hawaii back to the mainland?
Um, I just did therapy every day. I'd get up, eat, and then go just do therapy, occupational therapy, and just kind of trying to recover. The biggest thing was trying to get me to sit up and be
Oh,
okay being in my wheelchair for long periods of times, you know. And so that was it. Because your body, I don't have blood pushing up in my legs, pushing up to my heart and my head, so I'd sit up and I would pass out.
oh, interesting.
Even now, if I don't, you see me kind of fidget,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do this. That's me moving my muscles and stuff so that blood pushes
Moves.
back up to my head. Because if I just stood still and not moved, I would eventually just like get so lightheaded I'd pass out.
Oh,
So, anyways, that
interesting.
was just recovering.
Yeah,
And
Hyatt, my 17-year-old, well, he's now 18, but when he would sit, by the way, he broke his back a year ago last week. So,
wow,
but when they would have him sit and he would get exhausted from sitting. And, and I was like, you're exhausted. He's like, yeah, huge workout, sat for 15 minutes. And I was like,
yeah,
okay, just, I guess I take it for granted that sitting is a restful state for me.
yeah,
But he he had to do all of these things to work back up. Did you gain more mobility? Because the way that you describe it on the beach, you were like floppy and you
yeah. I
couldn't
was
raise your
paralyzed from
arm
the
in
neck
the.
down.
Okay,
Yeah,
but now you type and
Y-
you lift yourself around, fidget as you say. So
yeah.
how long did that take to get more feeling? Or
So it was the next day I started getting my arms back, but
okay,
it took me about 2 weeks before I realized that my fingers weren't working. It just
really,
didn't dawn on me. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, because I wasn't doing anything to like have to use my hands. I was
right?
just in there and I realized I was like, oh my gosh, my fingers are not moving. So my paralysis, it's kind of weird. You'll see a lot of people in my situation, and it's you're paralyzed from the chest down, like the nipples down.
Uh
And
huh.
so like half my arms are full strength, half or less.
Hmm.
Like, this muscle, I
Oh
don't know if
yeah.
you can see this, is
Yeah.
full, but I can't do this like barely this way,
Oh,
and so you can
interesting.
see my forearms are really atrophied. My triceps are halfway, my shoulders are full, and my biceps are full strength.
Hmm.
But so it's kind of like half your arms, half the muscles aren't working. And so like my lats are full strength, but my back so it's kind of this half and half type thing. You have to kind of think about it and so anyways, in recovery I just was working on they put me on this table and they would slowly raise me up like like Frankenstein. That's literally what
Okay.
it looked like. I was strapped in. Yeah. And they'd throw a balloon at me and I'd have to like hit it. And that was exhausting. Just hitting
Huh.
a balloon back and forth.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, yeah.
So now
Um,
you're single at the time because you just gotten home from a mission, and
yeah.
you're the fact that you're recovering from a pretty. You say it wasn't that. You said things that imply that it wasn't that bad, but you're paralyzed. So
Yeah.
when you say that, what do you mean by, and what measurement are you using to make that judgment?
Well, it was, I wasn't depressed. I didn't have to take any medication. Like I've heard people have to get on medication because they were depressed and they just go into
Okay.
this deep. I was not, I was always mentally super positive,
Gotcha.
and just positive. That's what people always commented, is that I was so positive and upbeat about things, and I just kind of took it in strides. It was hard. Like there'd be times where one day I would just break down because I just was like, I can't believe it. I'd be just have a good cry session, but it was all right. Just keep moving along, and
Did you give yourself permission? Was it a mental exercise of like, you know what, I'm just going to let it go for a while and then I'll get back to my normal self? Or did it just overwhelm you and you just had to let it go?
just overwhelm me. Like sometimes
Yeah.
I would think about something and I would just, have a tough time. It was kind of cathartic. Yeah, it was just a good release, and you're like, okay, I feel good, and then, just move on.
Gotcha.
Um, and so it's been like it took me once I it was tough once I kind of embraced it and said, this is happening. This is like
Mm-hmm.
permanent, and this is just what I'm dealing with right now. As soon as I accepted it, it became much easier. I
Oh,
wasn't fighting against it, And it's like
yeah.
if you're in a trial, you just accept it and move on. You can't do anything about it. You can't will yourself to change things, or it depends on the Lord, and you get blessings and stuff. And it was just like, this is what I have. And so as soon as I accepted it, it became easier emotionally
That
to deal with it.
is very insightful. I'm sorry, I'm jotting that down. So when you're in a trial, instead of trying to fight against the fact that you're in a trial, if you go, okay, you know what, this is a trial, this is hard, then it allows you to kind of work within that trial to move
Yeah.
forward instead of trying to be like, I don't want to be here. I don't want
Right.
this.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like you're in a river of strong current, and you keep trying to swim, against the current. You're just killing yourself, swimming, 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 and it's like, just go with the flow, you know,
Yeah.
and do your best and just go down the rapids, and deal with it. So, yeah, that just kind of helped me out once I accepted it. And looking back, I wish I had done that earlier, because they, they kept trying to get me to learn how to drive and do all these things. And I was like, nope, I'm going to walk. I don't need to do that. I'll be walking soon, you
Hmm.
know. And I wasted, the good first 5 years that I could have just been really moving on with myself, and moving on with life, and kind of learning to take care of myself, life, driving and stuff like that. Instead, like, I had people drive me around forever. I didn't get I didn't get a car and become self-sufficient until, a few years after getting married. I could have done that a lot earlier.
Yeah, that's
But the thing is
interesting.
that the hard part, though, is I went to a therapist in Hawaii,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay, I need to learn how to take care of myself, like bathroom stuff, and I need some help, occupational therapy, with doing this stuff. And this guy just said, he's like, just have somebody do it for you. Like, why would you do that? Why would you struggle? Yeah, he just basically said, just give up and just let somebody else do it for you. It
That's
was
weird.
craziest thing. Yeah, craziest thing. And
Huh.
I thought, that mentality, I was like, dude, forget you. And I left. I was
Yeah,
like, this
good
is
for
dumb. I
you.
never went back, because he just said, why would you want to do this?
Yeah.
Just
I think that's interesting. Did you ever find a therapist that you have enjoyed or that was aligned with things that were helpful?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone except that guy.
Okay,
But
good.
that was back, back in the States. This guy was in Hawaii, and I don't, it's kind of the mentality. I think it's just laid back, and you
Yeah.
know, don't work harder than you
We
need
uh
to.
we went through quite a bit of therapists and counselors trying to find good fits, and it was very frustrating because you'd finally get an appointment, and then it was go the first week, and you're like, oh man, let's keep going, it'll probably get better, and then like 4 weeks in, you're like, this is horrible. uh let's start the process over again.
Yeah.
Luckily now we have some pretty phenomenal therapists for our kids, and my wife and even I get to utilize this guy. I call it, his name's Brian. I won't use his last name because he's probably like, dude, don't talk about me. But
Right.
he's awesome because he's one of those. He's very relaxed, but he doesn't he doesn't give you an out when things are needing to be different. He's just
Mm,
like, well, no, you might not be able to do that now, but you will. You'll have to deal with this. It's okay if you don't deal with it now, but let's
yeah.
keep moving. Let's progress. Let's have some movement here. And I really appreciate him. So anyway, hearing your therapist, I was like, oh yeah, had one therapist, and I probably shouldn't share this story, but my daughter came out and said, so I don't think this is a good idea. I was like, why is that? I thought she meant therapy. And she's like, because the therapist is trying to get me to like really hate you guys. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, kept asking me these leading questions about how you guys treat me, and how
Oh,
I should be. I don't need to talk to you guys. I was like, yeah, we'll we'll pull you. That's fine.
yeah.
That one's
That's
out.
crazy.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it's so weird. So how did you
Yeah.
meet your wife? And what was dating like after being in a diving accident?
So I met my wife first day at school there, and I was in
Okay.
love with her roommate. I really liked her roommate, so
What?
I was
Okay, I
dating her
didn't know
roommate.
this.
Yeah, I was like dating her roommate kind of, and so I got hurt, and we were still kind of her and her roommate. We were still kind of talking, but Steph and I were friends, you know, the whole time. Anyways,
Sure.
Steph, she convinced me after I was home for a year, she convinced me to come back to Utah or Hawaii and go back to
Okay.
school. And she's like, I was like, I can't, I gotta go to therapy. So I'll take you to therapy. We bought a car together. She promised to take me to therapy and drive me and stuff. And so the whole
This is
time
a
though, she's
friend?
been in love with
You
me.
you weren't
She was in
dating.
love with me. No, no, she was in love with me though the first day she met me. And she like
Uh,
the first day she went home and called her mom and said, I've met my husband.
oh man.
So it took me a couple years to fall in love with her. So anyways, we were just friends and then we just started kind of hanging out and dating and finally I kissed her and then we just started dating and anyways, so I proposed and we got married 2003. And
Nice.
so we got married at Salt Lake Temple. And looking back, we should have just forgot about and didn't care if family made it there. We should have just got married in Hawaii. I don't know why I went to Salt Lake, but that's where she's from, Utah.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Well,
we got yeah,
I've been raising so I have three daughters who are at BYU Idaho, and my son is 18 and he's preparing to serve a mission. But I've been training all of my kids with this philosophy that the ceremony is for you guys. The
yeah,
reception is for everybody else.
yeah,
So, and my wife, just recently, she was talking. So, my good friend, his daughter just got married a couple weeks ago. Went to the ceiling in the Meridian Temple. It was beautiful and lovely. Everything you want in a wedding ceremony. And so, of course, Sarah and I started talking because our kids are getting to that point where they're gonna end up getting married,
hmm
hopefully. And she was like, if why why did we do it the way we did? I was like, well, that's kind of what everybody does. And she goes, wouldn't it be better to like have the luncheon and the reception on the same day and the ceiling the next day, and after the ceiling you do photos and then you leave? I was like, oh, that's genius. And so I was like, how do we get our kids to like have the luncheon, a civil marriage, the reception, and then the temple marriage the next
Yeah.
morning? Because it's now that's all good, and then they could
Right.
just head off and be together.
Be gone. Yeah. Yeah. If we had done it over, we'd just been like, just do it in Hawaii. If you can make it, you can make it. If not, sorry.
Yeah. When
So,
so she was in love with you. At what point did you realize that it was reciprocated back?
I don't know. We were just friends, and then I kissed her one day, and that was it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I asked her to marry me. I was like, we should just get married. She's like, really? I was like, yeah, it makes sense. And she always gives me a hard time. That's kind of a weird thing to say, but in my mind, it made sense because we were in love with each other, and
Yeah.
that's what I meant. So,
You
anyways,
weren't trying to remove the emotion. You were saying, hey,
yeah,
because of this emotion, although
right.
one of how old's your oldest? 14 or something?
He's 12.
12. Okay.
12.
Well, highly encourage you to read this book as a family if you don't like it's the Screw Tape Letters by
Oh yeah,
C.S. Lewis.
yeah,
Love that book because it talks about, if basically, hey, if demons were trying to disrupt and destroy families, how would they do it? And one of my favorite parts of it is, oh, convince them that they should get married because of an emotion like love, because no one can maintain that emotion all the time. And then you can get them to split up later because
right.
that, and I was like, oh, that's so devious. And that's true. So I keep telling my kids, hey, if you're going to get married in spite of being in love. And it doesn't go over very well because, they get me, but it doesn't sound
Right.
right. But I'm serious. I want them to get
Yeah.
married not because of the emotion, but because of the commitment and the loyalty and the covenant with God and them and
Yeah.
what it means. So,
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I get what
but
you're
that's
saying.
funny.
Yeah.
You're like, we should
Yeah.
get married. It makes sense financially,
Right.
save on rent.
Right. Right. So yeah, we
So
got. Go ahead.
I was gonna just ask you for the next step. So just to
Yeah.
recap, you grew up in California, moved to North Carolina, that became home. You serve a mission in Las
Yeah.
Vegas. You come home. You go to BYU Hawaii. You break your neck. You go back to North Carolina.
Yeah. For a year.
Stephanie Im- convinces you to move back to BYU
Yeah.
Hawaii.
We were always talking. We were always in touch, and she convinced me to come back. And
Okay.
I went back. When I went back to BYU, so they loved me there. They like totally. The campus at BYU was not wheelchair accessible. It's flat. It was tiny, but they didn't have a dorm. They didn't have ramps anywhere. They completely like reconstructed that campus for me. Like I was the
Nice.
one. They just rebuilt. They built a big old dorm with a nice big old roll-in shower and everything for me.
Wow.
And they loved me, and they like for the year I was gone, every prayer and every devotional they prayed about me. Pray for me.
That is so
So
awesome.
I was a minor celebrity for a little bit, but and
That's
everyone wanted to
cool.
come see me at the hospital too. They actually had the school paid for a bus, and they would bus like big groups of kids every single day to me to
Wow.
come see me.
That type of connection with others is so critical.
Yeah,
After this, I'm going to show you a couple pictures. One of them is one of my favorite pictures ever, and it was when a friend had come to visit Hyatt, but he had visitors every day. And talk
yeah,
about bullying and making him. I mean, he's flat on his back. He's not supposed to do anything,
yeah,
and these friends, man, saved his life because
yeah. It was
you said
definitely
it
helpful.
earlier. Depression is a real thing when catastrophic injury occurs, and not everybody has to face it as deeply as others. But man,
Yeah,
I'm so grateful for his friends. So now, so that means everybody else who has ever stayed in that dorm owes you a little debt of
right.
gratitude for having an ADA or
The
an
big one.
accessible.
Yeah, Yeah, it was huge. They took two dorms and made it into one big old,
Nice.
yeah, yeah. So little ramps everywhere. So yeah, it's cool. It's a fun campus, but
And
so yeah,
how did you end up in Arizona? Is that where you're at?
yeah. I'm in Arizona. So Steph and I got married, and we were in Salt Lake, and then I went back to North Carolina and lived with my parents for a few months. And Steph had graduated from BYU Hawaii, and I was still looking to get back into school and graduate. And so I was trying to figure out, I wanted to be an architect. I was trying to figure out where I was going to go. So I thought, well, I could apply for, I could go to ASU or Las Vegas. Both had pretty good architect programs. And I got accepted to ASU first. And so we moved to ASU.
Gotcha.
Um, and the thing about Las Vegas, it just didn't feel right. So, anyways, I got accepted to ASU, and um, I went there for 2 days, and it was hot. It was like Babylon.
Hmm.
It was just crazy going from BYU Hawaii,
Oh yeah.
dress code, all these like good LDS kids to ASU. It was just crazy. You're like, oh my gosh, everyone's naked and looks crazy. So I was there for 2 days. It was hot, and it's a huge campus, gigantic. And so Steph had to push me around, and I almost died from heat exhaustion because I don't
Are you able
sweat ever
to
since my
sweat?
no, no, my injury, and so I don't sweat. So I got way hot.
Oh
Like it was
no.
crazy. My so hot my arms started to fall asleep. Like all the blood was like just going to my heart to
Oh
try and stay
no.
cool. Yeah, it was crazy. So after that, I was like, I'm done, and I just went to community college and went through like drafting school, and so yeah, so we've been in Arizona ever since, and
Cool.
um,
So
yeah.
before your accident, did you have a career picked out and did it change after?
No, I was gonna be an architect.
Okay. And then that just
Yeah,
stayed the same after. How'd you
yeah,
end up becoming a product owner and I mean, you're kind of a techie guy. How did
yeah,
that
yeah.
happen?
So um, during my architecture class at MCC, Mesa Community College, one of my teachers convinced us to not become architects. He
Okay, tell
just
that
said,
story.
he just said, he's like, you'll be drafting for the first 25 years of your career, and maybe the last 2 or 3 years of your career, you'll actually be able to design something as a senior architect. And so he just like, don't do it,
Took the wind out of
right?
the sails.
Yeah, I was like, oh, gee. So I just did drafting, and then, um, yeah, then I did some drafting right like I graduated, and I did a little bit of drafting. I worked for a guy. That was fun. I liked doing the AutoCAD drafting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then my wife was working for a company, Keep. She got hired on as the first copywriter,
Oh, nice.
and then a year later, or 2 years later, or something, I got hired on as a support rep. So I started out
Oh,
in support, and that's kind of the beginning of my tech career. When I was in support, I was fell in love with going and talking to these guys in the back room about the product. And I was like,
gotcha.
oh, what do you guys do? Oh, product manager. That's what I want to be, a product manager. So I eventually just kept bugging them. I want to get over there, want to get over there. And finally, they recruited me from support to go be a
Nice.
product manager. And so that's what I've been doing ever
That's
since.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been ever since I met you, I've been impressed with how quick you make connections with technology and the latest one was today watching you do that. Use Cloud
Postman.
Postman
Yeah.
to create a series of API calls so you didn't have to programmatically. I mean, it would have taken me so much time to do it and you
Yeah.
make a spreadsheet and then you just do it. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, I
That
remember you
was,
saying it, and I actually got an email from them as like a marketing email from Postman,
yeah.
and the first thing was automate your testing. And I was like, what? And I read it. I'm like, this is exactly what I want to do with this stuff. So yeah, it
Oh,
was pretty cool.
such a great application of a tool. And
Yeah.
the other thing I remember is when we first started working together, and you had just stopped working for Keep, and I was having to write some API calls, and I was having a hard time with some of the documentation. And I was like, Mike, can you just can I can't figure this thing out? And you're like, oh, let me call somebody. I was like, oh, see, guy after my own heart, maintains relationships even after he's not there
Yeah.
anymore. Was able to get it all figured out. That was
Yeah.
pretty slick.
Yeah. I still know people back there.
Yeah, those relationships, those connections. It's what life's about.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I have some silly questions, and if you don't want to answer any of them, just say nah. I'm not going to answer them.
All
I'll
right.
edit it out. No one will see it.
Okay.
Okay. So, what's the stupidest thing someone has said to you about your injury or about the way that you live your life?
Um, I don't know. I've had people like I people not very often. I one guy like he was in we were in the hospital or something. He was in a wheelchair and he had broken his leg.
Hmm.
And I'd been in my wheelchair for 15 years, and he was like, "Man, I feel your pain. I feel your pain, dude. I'm sorry." And I was like, "No, you don't.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid. How long you been?" He's like, "Oh, a couple weeks now." And I'm like, "Really? A couple weeks? Wow, that's crazy." You know. And so he just broke his leg. So it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for the
Isn't
most
that
part, people
it's
are
interesting
okay.
on the when someone tries to relate to another person and they don't realize how deep it is, and they're like, man, look at it's like 3 inches, and you're like, 3 miles over here,
Yeah.
bucko.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife gave a talk in state conference last Sunday, did a magnificent job. I actually have a great recording of it if you want to listen to it. It is fantastic. She
Nice.
titled it Is the Journey Long? It's a song written by Joseph Fielding Smith, I think, or Joseph F. Smith, one of them.
Hmm.
Anyway, and she talks about it. She did just such a wonderful job of presenting it. And we have kind of kept to ourselves all the details of what's been going on with us, except for a few. Like, a lot, more than a lot of people.
Hmm.
But as she's giving her talk, there were audible gasps as she's like, and so that was 2 broken backs in less than 2 years. And then, she gets to back number 3 that broke. And this lady, and sitting behind her, I have this recording. Her eyes are just huge saucers and her mouth is
Oh,
dropped.
I
It's
can't
so
believe it's
funny.
happening.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love our steak. So you have kids.
Yeah.
Oh, another silly question. So, what's the biggest pain about being in a wheelchair or not having full 100% of your dexterity and stuff?
Biggest pain? Uh, well, before my kids, it was not being able to cook. I love to cook.
Oh,
I'm obsessed with cooking, and it's so hard because my wife hates to cook. Hates
oh
it.
no.
She does it. She does it. Like
Yeah.
she'll do stuff. She does incredible cookies and stuff like that, baking. But she hates to cook, and I love it. And not just cooking, but like the process.
Mm-hmm.
Just going through and doing the meticulous, like cutting things correctly, making sure everything's uniform and thinly sliced and perfectly. And yeah, so just everything about the journey of completing a dish and having it be really good. you know. So that's tough because I can't do it. And
Gotcha.
I could create tools, but it's not the same, right? It's not the action of holding a knife and cutting and slicing and
Mm-hmm.
that like what was my daughter say? It's like satisfying when she
Mm.
sees so that and then with the kid, now that I have kids, just not being able to teach them things, show them things as a father, and like making a fire. Like I can teach them, but I have to tell them
Right.
and try and like tell something that's complex
Mm-hmm.
and not being able to do it, but just try and explain to them how to do it. It's like so difficult, you know. It's
Yeah.
so hard to do this. So that's tough not being able to like show my kids just everyday things, you know. And so that's tough. That's tough.
And
And not being able to help my wife, is also really tough.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So the guy who was like, "Hey, just let other people take care of you," um, and then the how long did it take you to be able to tend to your hygiene needs and all that?
Um, well, like right after that, I just thought I'm not gonna let someone do this. So like
Uh-huh.
I'd brush my teeth, stuff like that, but I still need help showering, doing those things and getting dressed. Um, you remember the famous movie was shown all over the youth, this kid, he was a really like amazing football star and he got hurt and he got married and he talked about his life and being able to like get dressed in the morning and all that stuff. And so, yeah, like that was one thing is I probably could have learned a lot more, but I've had, people in my life that have helped me.
Sure.
Um, so, but yeah, like for the most part, I try and do as much as I can for myself. You know,
And
I've
you're
got this
six.
cool tool here.
Okay.
I've got this thing that I bought. Can you see this?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So I use this action.
So that's your wrist activated and it becomes a claw. It's like a
Yeah,
gripper.
because again, this muscle is
Strong.
100%. And so I
Gotcha.
put this, I pick things up, and I went years without this thing, and now I've got two of them. I can't
Yeah.
imagine, I can't imagine life without it. It's like, you know.
That's
So,
cool. And
anyways,
you mentioned that you drive. Does
yeah.
does does that mean you have like a do you wheel into the car or do you transfer into the car?
So right now I've got a little Honda Element. I wheel up to next to the wheel or
Mm-hmm.
the chair, and I transfer over to it, and I use like this like tri pin that I put my wrist in, and it locks my wrist and my hand in, and then I've got this one bar down below on the left, and it's like a video game. So I
Oh,
steer
okay.
like this, and I push forward for brake and pull down for gas.
Cool.
Yeah, you would be freaked out if you knew some of the crazy stuff that handicapped people drive with. You can literally drive with a straw. People
What?
paralyzed from the neck down are driving. You know the straw that you use to puff, like
Puff?
it's called puff and blow, puff and suck or something, where
Okay.
you puff for like two puffs, go straight. You actually can drive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Or
kind of
it's like a little tiny wheel right here on the right, and
uh-huh.
people are steering their car with this little tiny wheel next to them
Yeah,
that
that
they're
that is kind
barely.
of scary, but I kind of think it's cool
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. And it's incredible what they've got, like the mechanisms and stuff they have. Especially now, the technology's pretty crazy. I'm getting a big brand new van a Ford Transit, like a
Oh,
14 passenger van.
sweet. I love
Yeah.
those.
So it's getting modified right now. So
Oh, that's
fit
awesome.
the whole family in it.
Yeah.
So
I we drive a 15 passenger van, so I'm a big fan of big vans, but
yeah.
we I imagine the modifications going to be pretty slick. Is it going to be side entry or cuz
Yeah, it's side entry. It's gonna be an actual lift.
oh, okay.
So it's got this cool ramp that it's so it goes down, lifts me up. But when the doors close, it actually folds in half so that people can open the door and still get through when the ramp's up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So when it's up like this, it kind of folds like that, so you have a
Yeah.
place to get in and out.
Yeah, it kind of folds like an accordion. It
Okay.
kind of folds in. And so then
Nice.
when it goes down, it folds out and then goes down, lifts me up so I can get in and so
Well,
yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, that'll be
Well,
nice.
Mike, I have to tell you, I've enjoyed talking to you over the years, and this has been no exception.
Yeah.
If you were going to give some advice to someone who's going through the hard times, maybe they're just at the beginning of it, maybe they don't even know it's about to happen. What would be something that you would want them to be aware of or to keep in mind as they go through the dark part of the trial?
Well, that's funny you should ask because I'm like kind of going through a tough time right now too. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to think, what have I learned right now? Um, well, just with my injury, like I said, I think accepting it, not you can go two ways, right? You can either give up and just complain about it, or you can accept it and just do the best you can, right? Either, both ways are like complaining about it's not going to change it. And you're just going to make your life miserable. So do the best you can. Um, and if you don't believe in God, believe in God and, you know, seek
Wonderful.
his strength, go to the temple, you know, read your scriptures. Just those primary answers. Honestly, that's where the strength is. Those everyday things. And like President Hinckley, I remember him talking, and he basically said, "Look, it may get worse, but it'll always get better. It'll work out."
Hmm.
So you don't have to be super positive all the time, but just don't give up. I don't know,
That's
like those are just typical things, but
Yeah, it might be typical, but it's always good to be reminded of those things. And um, as we close, I just want to thank you again for the time. And I would love to do another one of these and talk about some of the more recent trials. Maybe it might be too
hmm
soon, but you know, we can compare notes on things because I've been
yeah,
unemployed for since April, and that's
yeah.
been oh, not my
It'll be almost
favorite.
a year for me. In
Oh,
March, it'll be a year, which I never ever thought that would happen.
yeah.
It's crazy. So
Well, I would hire you.
I appreciate
Someone
it.
should
I would
someone
work for
should
you.
hire you, man. They'd be
I
so
know.
blessed to have you. Anyway, well, thanks, Mike.